What's cracking, boys? Today we're going to get into what it takes to maintain your fishing rods for every season and why I should probably do it more often, because I'll tell you right now, I don't. But the information that I'm going to share with you on this video, this is information that I've gathered from across the internet. I am by no means a person who builds their own rods or does like professional rod cleaning or repair, anything like that. But most of the information that I'm going to be sharing with you is basic knowledge. Nothing I'm doing here is going to be anything that requires a whole lot of tools or expertise to do this job. With that said, let's kind of dive into the first part of this, which will be cleaning up dirty rods. And I've got a handful of them, so let's get into it. So what we're going to be tackling first is my Ozark Hybrid. Now you guys can see here, this puppy's dirty. And I still got line, I got the reel on there, I got the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to start by taking this apart, taking the reel off, taking the line off the reel. Then I'm going to start cleaning up the rod first. Look at this beautiful jig. Look at that beautiful jig, tied by no one other than Mr. Kevin. So we're just going to go ahead and take these snips, cut that jig off. Make sure you, when you unbuckle reels like this, you got a hand underneath so your reel doesn't just flop on the floor. I haven't cleaned this Ozark yet, so this will be the first time. Alright, now we're just gonna pull the existing line through here. Alright, so now I'm gonna take it apart, because this is in fact a 2-piece rod. There we go. Alright, so I'm gonna set the top piece down over there. And then so my first plan of action on this is to clean up the rod and the cork. And how I do this is by warm soapy water. I just use Dawn dish soap, warm water, and I'll use kind of just like a light sponge and just kind of go through the whole rod, go through the cork, get a lot of that grime off. Now you probably don't want to use anything too abrasive like the sponge I use. This it's kind of abrasive. It's not too bad, but it's not going to damage the rod or anything. This is just like a 3M sponge. So I'm going to start with the top half here. I'm just going to I'm not squeezing down on this rod tip hard at all. I'm just kind of lightly laying it over the rod. Kind of want to be delicate with this stuff. Again, you just don't want to be real aggressive with it. Your goal isn't to scratch up the rod or damage it in any way. You're just trying to get that excess schmeg off. And so what I'll do is take a paper towel and then kind of come back behind what you just hit with the sponge there. Trying to not smack this rod tip on my surroundings here, but where I have this camera mounted, it's a little tricky. Now what I'm going to do next is check the guides for any kind of damage or imperfection, and I do that by using a tapered Q-tip. You can use a regular Q-tip. Tapered ones work a little bit better, but basically all you got to do is stick that Q-tip in there like that, kind of go back and forth with it, and if there's any damage inside the guide itself, you'll see that the tip of the Q-tip starts to kind of pull away some of the fibers of that cotton. That's a good indication that you've got some damage there. And the other thing that it does here, and you'll see kind of on this Q-tip, it starts to get a little dirty. And that's because, you know, what we fish in these lakes and rivers and everything, you know, your line accumulates some of that stuff. You may not see it, but it does. And it rubs against these guides. And of course they're going to pick up some of that schmeg. Make sure you get a good look at the inside of the guides themselves too, you know what I mean? Because if it's really bad, if you got like a break inside the guide, you'll see it. Normally I would have edited something like this out, but I'm not going to, just because it's funny. But actually that tip I just cleaned was for the Sam Heaton, because I had taken that apart because that back there that I've been working on the cork, I took the top half off so I could work on it, and it's sitting right next to my top half to my Ozark. So I just instinctively grabbed it. So I haven't even cleaned the tip of the Ozark yet, but I'm going to now. But that gave you guys kind of a quick first look at how I do it. And you know, it's funny because as I'm cleaning that, I'm like, yeah, I'm really impressed how clean this is. And it's because I've already cleaned it. Oh, me. Alright. So, same thing, only this time we're actually using the Ozark. Kind of just going through this lightly, not aggressively. Yeah, the tip of this one I can definitely feel. It's got some schmegums on it. I apologize if some of this looks awkward. I'm trying to make sure I'm in frame while also trying to pay attention to not smacking the rods and damaging them against anything in my garage here. It's fun. It's a challenge. I like it. Just come back behind what I just scrubbed there. And if you're wondering how often you should do this, you know, I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that for you. I'd say you clean your rods however often you want. You know, I've owned so many rods that I've never cleaned. Maybe with the exception of the reel from time to time, especially if I'm using one of my saltwater setups. Because obviously saltwater is a lot more to maintain than freshwater. However, you know, if you really want to take care of your equipment, I'd say once a year. That's what I would say. But again, I'm not really holding myself to that standard all the time. So you do with that what you want. This is definitely a labor of love. You gotta really appreciate your equipment to take care of it like this. And I think some people might say that it's silly for pan fishing guys like us to go this far with it all. Because again, it's freshwater, so it's not as harsh on the equipment as, you know, anything you use in saltwater. You know, if you appreciate what you got, especially with some of these setups like ACCs and this Ozark, I mean, these are nice rods. So why not go the extra mile and take care of them? As far as the guides on this one, freaking primo. I mean, other than, you know, being a little dirty, but... So, top half of the Ozark is now complete. I'm gonna start cleaning the bottom half of the rod itself, and then we will do the cork last, because that's gonna be the most disgusting. I will leave a link to these 3M sponges, you know, whether you want to use these or not. When I was doing my research on all this stuff originally, some other guys were recommending a different kind of sponge, and also like the kind of like wet wipes almost. But you know, I wasn't about to drop 15 bucks on a pack of wet wipes when soapy water does the same freaking thing. So, but you do you. That's what you want to do. Other than it being a little bit hot, and that's probably just because I'm in the garage. It's a nice day here in Central Florida today. High of like 87, I think. We have officially started getting some nice fall weather. It doesn't last too long, but when we get it, it's nice. So that rod's looking pretty sharp. I know you can't quite tell on the camera of a GoPro, but it is. Alright, so now we're going to move on to this nasty cork. So you see how dirty it is now. This backside isn't too bad because I don't ever really grip this, but this is where the hand lies, and you can tell it's got speck schmeg all over it. So what we do is take that same sponge and just lightly kind of go over that cork. Yeah, she be nasty. So as you can see, there's really not much to what I'm doing here. Just kind of being thorough, just getting off as much of that fish mag as you can. All right, and we're gonna go back over that. Get a paper towel. So what I'm gonna do before I would hit this with any kind of cork sealant, which again I use U40. This is U40 cork seal. And basically you just kind of use a brush, and a little bit goes a long way with this stuff, so don't go ham on it. And you only wanna do one coat. But once this cork is finished drying, I'm gonna use just a small brush and kind of go over this in one coat. And again, you don't want to lather it on because you don't want it dripping. You just want to do a light cover on it and then let it sit for about 24 hours. It'll probably dry within like 45 minutes to an hour, but you really want to let it do its thing and completely seal. And then that's just going to prolong the life of the cork. So anyway, I'm going to set this to the side and let it dry. All right, this is my probably second favorite rod here. This is my 11-foot rear seat ACC. And as you can see, this puppy here hasn't seen a clean in a hot minute. So same thing with this. Gonna go ahead and get the reel off. Start stripping the line off the reel. I usually don't put too much line on these. I mean, they can't hold that much anyhow, but some guys I've seen on YouTube, they kind of go ham with these things. And like, even the little amount that I put on here, I rarely will hit the bottom by the end of the season. So you don't go crazy with putting a lot of line on these Bano 1 reels. This reel here is far dirtier than the first one. I don't think that I've ever cleaned this. So we're gonna give that a good douching. Good old douching. So got her scrubbed down pretty good. So now I'm gonna go over this with a paper towel. You guys know the drill by now. Get the excess water soaked up here. You guys can spend as much time as you want doing this stuff. It's looking a lot better, so I'm just going to set this to the side. Old Greenie here. I know she needs a good cleaning. You know, I haven't really used, or I didn't really use my 11-foot ACC all too much this last spec season. And I think the reason for that is when we're fishing that real heavy cover with dollarweed and it's mostly dollarweed and hyacinth and stuff, when we're digging holes for it, we can't really, the poles that we use to dig out those holes don't extend as far as I would normally go with an 11-foot. So I usually would stick with a 10-foot anyway. But if we're fishing like heavy cattails and stuff, that I'd be more apt to use this 11-foot ACC. This is kind of like my go-to when I'm trolling the edges of weed lines and stuff. Love using this rod. This rod has seen quite a bit of wear because I've used this a lot. This is probably my most used rod overall. But I'll tell you, for as much use and abuse this rod has seen, it's still in tip-top. You guys having fun yet? Super exciting video, huh? But it is satisfying to see, you know, how dirty they were before, and then once you get done, it's a beautiful thing. Obviously, with an 11-foot rod, you have more guides to go through and make sure are good. But that's no big deal. So now we're going to go ahead and get this grimy bugger cleaned up. I've never cleaned the handle of this rod. So with it being this foam kind of cover, don't know how well it's going to clean up, but we're fixing to find out. Well, it's better, but it still ain't great. I'm going to go ahead and hit it again. Alright, that's about as good as I'm going to be able to get it. You know, maybe I could spray some other stuff on here, but with it being kind of this special grip, I'm not really going to use too many cleaners on that. That's still way better than it was. I'm satisfied with that. And the rod itself is nice. So, guides are looking good. So I'm actually going to strap this together and put it away as is. And simply for travel purposes, because I'm going to be heading down to Okeechobee here in a couple weeks. And I will be bringing this rod with me. What I like to use are these little strips of Velcro. I'll actually just put the rod together and then just wrap these little Velcro straps around them. Works perfect. And it's not like abrasive on the rod or anything. So it kind of just keeps them taut together like that. Anyway, thought I'd share that. Next up on the list is Sam Heaton number 2. Now you can see that big old chunk taken out of the back. I still don't know how that happened, but it happened. I'm gonna unseat this reel. This is the President Pfluger. This is the 500, I believe. So this rod, being as jacked up as it is, not only dirty, I don't know if that can come through on the camera there, but this one is substantially dirtier than any of the other ones. And then I'm also going to fill in the back of this with some wood filler. And what I use for cork wood filler is this. This is the best color that I've found that matches with cork. It's golden oak. So you can find this online. You can find it at Lowe's, Home Depot. So I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to go ahead and start filling this in. Going to pull out the line on this Pfluger. There really wasn't too much left on it anyway. Even that's pretty dirty. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Just cleaning off the tip of the Heaton here. And another little thing you can do with these guides, if you just take like a damp paper towel, you can kind of use your fingers in a pinching motion inside that paper towel, pinch around these guides, and just skirt around. Twist. Do the twist. Just want to make sure you don't really bend the guides that much, if at all. Do the last little inspection here. So far, all these guides have looked pretty dang good. A couple of them have been a little dirty, but as far as any splits or cracks, anything like that, looking pretty good. So basically what I'm going to do is take this, and I'm going to squirt, make sure I'm in frame as best as I can be here. Just going to squirt it in that opening there. Take my putty knife, kind of go over that as best as I can. So this one here is actually going to probably take 2 applications because it was such a deep gap. So what I'll do is probably just leave it be, just like that. It's kind of like spreading chocolate almost. So yeah, it's probably about as good as I'm going to get that for right now. So what I'll do is I'll come back once this dries in about 24 hours, I'll probably sand it down a little bit and then give it another round on top just to kind of even it out, because it's still not quite up where it needs to be. So that's the plan. So that's how we're going to start. And when you're done, just make sure you get the tip wiped off there. Put the cap back on. Same thing with your putty knife. Wipe that down real good. The sooner you can clean this stuff off, the better. Just doing up another ACC here. This might be the one my dad modded, because this is the GS10M, which is usually a mid-seat, I believe. But I know I had one mid-seat left, like I first bought or something like that. But he modded it, and this does kind of look like that. Modded it to be a rear seat because we don't really use the mid seats anymore. Them days is gone. Yeah. All right. Since I don't really use this rod too often anymore, I'm still going to do some cork sealing on it so you guys can see that in action. So again, U40 cork seal. This stuff's pretty thin, so get you a little brush. Just take a very small amount, because again, a little bit goes a long way with this stuff. And then just start brushing that cork. And again, you don't want it running off the cork. You just want to get like a good base cover on it. That's why you just want to do little tiny bits at a time. Now what you do is you kind of just look it over. I mean, you can tell what's been brushed because it's kind of glossy compared to just the bare cork that hasn't been sealed. You got like one little part. I just need a tiny bit here. And if you do see that you start to get some drip, just catch it with the brush. Dab it off with a paper towel. Alright, that looks pretty good to me though. And another thing about this U40 stuff, you don't want to leave it on the brush for too long. So it's best if you have the rods that you're planning on sealing ready to rock. Just get it all done. Alright, so you can kind of see that U40. It gives it like a little bit of a shine to it. This isn't sealed yet. That's the one I just filled in. But this is the Ozark. I just did a finish on that. This one isn't as shiny, but it's got a little bit to it. This is the modified GS10M. So, you know, it's not to make it freaking glisten in the moonlight, but it helps seal in that cork a bit better. Alright, so we're fixing to do the same thing to my tree thumper. It's the B&M tree thumper. Y'all have seen me use that rod a bit this last season, and I'll be honest, I'm probably going to retire this one. I'm not really going to get into the specifics on this video. I will do a full in-depth review on this one. However, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to take care of it, because I will probably either end up selling it or giving it away. I'm not quite sure yet. We'll see. Okay. And there you have it. As I said, you just want to make sure there's no drips on the underside. We're going to go ahead and lay this over with the rest of them. Alright, and I like to hit my spinning reels with this stuff here. This is a Clenzoil, kind of like a lubricant and anti-corrosion. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, You know, there may be some old timers out there that got their own way of doing things. That is totally fine. I'm not saying that anyone needs to do things exactly the way that I'm doing them in this video. This is just how I maintain my stuff. But by no means am I saying that anyone that does it differently than me is incorrect. Alright. So as you can see, I got my 2 spinning reels, both my Sahara 5 Hundo, and then the President Fluger. And I got my 3 Ban 01s, all cleaned up in tip-top shape, ready for line. All of these are ready for line. And as I mentioned in my last video, this is the line that I'm putting on the stuff this season. It's the Triline Extra Tough 6-pound test. This is a low-vis monofilament. Alright, so we're back here a couple days later. All these rods have had plenty of time to dry and everything, so I know you can't quite tell, you know, after that U40 has done its job sealing this cork. That's kind of what it looks like. But yeah, this is ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and slap the reel on this, get some line on it, and this will be absolutely ready for this season. And so the major repair we had was on the second Sam Heaton here, if you guys recall. And this has completely dried up. This is solid as a rock here. So what I'm going to do is just sand this down a bit, kind of get it refined, and then I'm going to top it with another layer of that wood filler just to kind of make it even again. And then we'll let that dry for another day or so, come back, sand it, and we should be good. But that's where we're at with this. And in case you guys wonder exactly how I spool my my reels, I like to go through the rod first. Some guys will actually spool the reel first and then bring the excess back up. I like to just start at the tip and bring it all the way down, and then tie it onto the reel and then start reeling it up. Everyone's different, but that's kind of the way I prefer to do it. So this is that Velcro that I was talking to you about earlier that I like to use to tie up my rods, especially when I'm traveling. Take them apart, use this to wrap it around, maybe the top and then the bottom. Keeps them nice and secure, doesn't damage the rod. So I'll just cut off, you know, probably one about that size. Do one roughly the same size for the bottom. So here's my B&M tree thumper. Like I said, I'm definitely not going to be using this season. So what I'm going to do is just store it away. But I got the rod apart and I got it layered here. And then I'll just take a piece of this and wrap it around. Just like that. And then I'll come back up top here. And it's good if you can find a spot that's between the two eyes, like right here. Just kind of loop that around. Just like that. So I actually ended up cutting a little bit bigger piece for the bottom here. But that's how I stow them away when I'm traveling or just putting them away for the season. Easy peasy. So probably my 2 go-tos this season are going to be my Ozark 10-foot. And then I'm actually going to be using this. This is the GS10M. So this was actually originally a mid-seat ACC. But like I mentioned before, my dad modified this to where he made it a rear seat. So by doing this modification, it's actually not a full 10-foot anymore. It's actually like 9 and 9 1/4, 9.5 or something, which is fine because a lot of the fishing that we do is pretty close to the boat. So I probably won't be using like my 11-foot ACC unless I'm fishing the river, anything like that where I'm trolling the edges. Majority of the style of fishing we do in Okeechobee is going to be heavy cover, cattails. I mean, you guys see me do all that. So for Okeechobee, it'll be this one and my Ozark. That's what that looks like. Still almost looks like a mid-seat, but not quite. So as you can see, we got a little bit more than we need on top here, so I'm going to sand that down. So I'm just using, this is a 220 fine grit sandpaper. It's pretty much what you want to stick with for stuff like this. So that's about where I want it there. So now I'm going to go ahead and just top it off with some more wood filler here, just to kind of make it even. And then by the next time this dries, we should be able to sand it down and it'll be good. Okay. Let's give it another dab here. I can use my little putty knife and just fill it in as best as I can. Alright, let this sit and dry, and we'll come back in another day or so and sand that down. And we're back, another day. This is all hardened up now. Take my sandpaper and go over it. Just using this other towel to get the excess dust off. And you know what? That looks pretty good to me. It's not 100% perfect, but hey, compared to what it was before, good enough for me. Let's go ahead and seal it. You can see that wood filler, it matches pretty dang close to the original color of that cork. So, looks good. So we're gonna go ahead and seal this up. Now some of you may be wondering, well, wouldn't it just be easy to get a whole new piece of cork? And the answer to that is, you know what? Maybe. Maybe it would be. But you know, doing stuff like this, it's just fun. Maybe not for everybody, but to me, yeah, it's kind of fun. So, you know, if that's a route that you want to go, just replacing the whole piece of cork, which, you know, if it was really that bad, I probably would. But you guys saw all that chunk missing. There's a pretty considerable size of cork that was gone, but not enough for me to, you know, completely rip it out and put a new piece in. Just a reminder, you want to make sure that that U40 isn't dripping off. You don't want it that thick on here. Little Bob Ross frickin' rod repair here. It's looking pretty good. Just trying to get kind of an even coat over everything here. Let it dry, and this puppy is ready to go for the next season. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this video. I appreciate y'all sticking around and watching all this. It might have been entertaining to some. For others, maybe it was boring as all get out. But you know, I thought it was worthwhile to go ahead and throw together this, just to share with y'all what I do on a typical season. Like I mentioned before, it's not every year that I go through all these rods to that extent, but clearly it needed to be done for this season, so I'm happy that I did it. And if y'all have rods that you use on a regular basis, treat them, you know, give them a little extra love. You know, it's going to go a long way, especially with using that U40 on the cork. You really can't go wrong with that. So if you're interested in any of the products that I used to do this whole process, look down in the description of the video. There'll be links to everything. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm going to catch you on the next one.